Let's swing it back to schools real quick because we have this story that's been going around. Utah teacher no longer employed after advocating vaccination and telling students she hates Trump. Alpine School District said that kind of behavior will not be tolerated. The video of her sharing her opinions in front of a class at Lehigh High School on Tuesday was shared widely on social media. And by Wednesday morning, the second day of the new school year, Alpine School District in Utah County confirmed she wasn't employed there anymore. Spokesman David Stevenson said in a statement that he cannot comment on personnel matters and would not say whether the teacher was fired, only that she wasn't working there now. She had originally been put on leave Tuesday while the district investigated. Quote, "This behavior is inappropriate, not reflective of the professional conduct and decorum we expect of our teachers and will not be tolerated." Have you seen the video?
I haven't. I've seen people sharing. I didn't get a chance to watch it.
I don't agree with this.
You don't agree with them
I
firing
would
her?
have loved to have been in that class. I watched this video. She wasn't screaming at people. She was just giving her opinion and being loud. She was treating the kids like adults. They're high school kids. They're not school children. And so you could hear some guys arguing with her. And they were saying like, no, like, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, well, that's dumb. You're dumb. And I'm like, man, I would have killed to have had a teacher debate me or argue with me about politics in school, treating me like an actual, like human being instead of just, no, shut up, you're stupid, moving on, do as I say or else. She was actually talking to these kids. Now, her opinions are dumb. They were really bad. I just think about what would have happened if it was the other way around, where a teacher comes out and says, kids, like, listen, you've got to think for yourselves. You've got to plan ahead. Just because the media is saying Trump is bad doesn't mean he is.
Right.
Then all of a sudden they're like, oh, no, the teacher. So I'm fine with the teacher, to a certain degree, talking to high school kids about, about their opinions and allowing the kids to talk back.
I mean, I am too. But you said she called them dumb for challenging her.
She did.
Okay, so that's a little bit different.
Right.
I'm all for critical thinking. I'm all for inquiry. I'm all for kids, particularly, of a certain age, challenging, pushing back on their teachers. But when the teacher still has a role of authority in the classroom, so if it'd be different if she said, let's engage on this issue. But if she's calling them dumb, that to me indicates that she is trying to shut down discussion, not encourage more of it. I
just think she's dumb. Like she didn't say shut your mouth, stop talking. Yeah. She actually engaged the student, and they had she wasn't talking over. I mean, there's a bit of argument and stuff.
Yeah, of course.
But I'm like, man, I'd love to be in a classroom where the students are being like, here's what I think, and then she's like, well, I don't think.
Me too.
That sounds like a good thing for these kids to see that and to see these people challenging it. Granted, I still think maybe at the end of the day, teachers shouldn't be going to classes to argue politics with their students, whether it's for or against Trump.
It wastes everybody else's time.
Yeah.
So
sit and listen to that.
Exactly. And so as much as I would have enjoyed arguing with the teacher and her engaging me, I think the kids are there to be like, look, we're going to talk about math and everything. You can talk to your parents about the political stuff.
Yeah. You can set up. You can go in and talk to the teacher after class if you really want to shoot politics and talk about politics.
Right. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
She is a chemistry teacher. I don't really think that she ought to be talking about politics, do you? Yeah. Honestly.
She squeezes in Trump stuff, So now we're going to be dealing with, we have sodium here. And of course, Trump's a salty MFer. That guy sucks. And anyway, that's sodium chloride, by the way. Sodium chloride or table salt and salty like Trump. And I'll tell you what, that would be funny. I would enjoy that, Like the issue I had with school was the callousness, the cold, the condescension. So I watched that video and I'm like, man, my schools were just like, shut up, you're dumb, moving on.
Wow.
For her to be like, well, that's dumb or you're dumb, I'm kind of like, yeah, but she's talking to him and he's talking back.
Yeah.
So I think that's like one thing we need to do with kids is treat them like they're adults and not treat them like they're stupid babies.
I mean, I agree with that. I will say this. One, I'm surprised it's Utah. If you said
right.
Boston or, Philly or Portland or something like that.
They did fire her.
Yeah.
She did say a couple things that I think warranted discipline. She said, most of your parents are probably stupider, or you're probably smarter than your parents, or your parents are dumber than you, or something like that. And she said, don't listen to your parents. You don't have to listen to your parents.
See,
that was the line.
That's where schools get into trouble, where they try to undermine the authority of parents. And again, that's one of the big things that I think may draw people to home education, is because in many respects, everything that we've seen play out in the last year, I think has been a struggle over authority, where we see the state set itself up against citizens who say, my job is essential. If you, Mr. or Mrs. Governor, are drawing a check, during the pandemic. Why should I have to forego my pay when you've seen churches and local governments get into struggles over whether churches can open, right? Again, an issue of authority. Who, from the church's perspective, who is the higher authority? Is it Christ or is it Caesar? And as it relates to education, it's schools setting themselves up as a higher authority than parents. Listen to us, right? We know better. We went to school. We have master's degrees. Don't listen to your parents. And I think for whatever reason, parents have accepted that is the natural order of things in college. But when schools start doing that with kids as early as 3 and introducing them to things that their parents don't necessarily know about, I'll give you an example. In many school districts, if a child sort of exhibits signs of not even gender dysphoria, if the child says, I'm questioning my gender, the schools will allow a child to socially transition. They'll use a different name, different pronouns in the school. But then not only will they not tell the parents, when the parents come around, they will call Jimmy in front of his parents.
To hide it.
And I think when you start to open those types of doors, all different types of things can come through.
We had a woman on the show. She was showing us a bunch of books, the critical race applied principle books, and one of them was it was called, was it Not My Idea?
Not My Idea. Yep.
And it was Azra who
Azra.
Not My Idea.
Oh yeah, no, Azra.
Yeah. Have you seen the book Not My Idea?
I have not. No.
It's this little girl who looks like she's 6 or 7 years old. And she says, like, one day Mommy was watching a video on the computer of a policeman, and then when I came up, she covers it and, something like that. And then, later on, there's this, they show this picture called the whiteness contract or whatever. And it's a contract with a devil tail, and it says you'll steal from your neighbors and whatever. And then she says, at the end, the little girl's in the car and starts screaming, no, you're lying to me. Tell me the truth. I know the truth. And the mother's like, oh no, what's happening? Okay, I guess I'll tell you. The whole book was basically priming children to defy what their parents were teaching them. We have seen these teachers post these videos where they say, we are going to teach your kids things you don't want them to.
Yeah.
There was the Gay Men's Choir,
that
viral video. Tongue-in-cheek, whatever they want to call it, they said,
we're coming for your kids.
Over and over again, thinking it was funny. But then they said, like, all the things you don't want them exposed to, we're going to expose them to. And their friends and everything. And it's like, dude, parents have a right to choose for their children what's best for them. You do not own these kids. Yeah. But that's the saying, the left doesn't have any kids, they have yours.
That's good. Yeah. That's good. Even, there's a show that my kids like. It's called Bubble Guppy. So if you got any parents out there who have young children, they'll know what it's about. And they had RuPaul voice over a character in one of the episodes. So the whole show takes place underwater. So the characters are like, mini mermaids and fish and stuff like that. And at one point, one of the characters, they were talking about getting dressed during the day, and they said, yeah, it's a real drag. And you could tell that, they're trying to let the adults in on the joke.
Right.
And for me, the way I think about it, in terms of the analogy that I would use, is that there's a lot of different ways to cook a steak. I'll say it that way, right? But when you first pull it out of the fridge, it's not ready for the frying pan. So you can pulverize it, or you can tenderize it. And you pulverize with policy, and you tenderize with culture. And really what the left is trying to do in terms of their tenderizing is marinate us in these things. And they want to get the kids in as young as possible. Yep. Because when you're being marinated, the spices and, the aroma and it smells good and you think it tastes good. But those fibers that have been so tough and so unforgiving for a long time are being sort of broken down. And that's how you get people who are open to ideas, whatever the transgression is, because the left is all about subversion of any sort of social norm. And I think that's what you're seeing. And that's the reason why they think it's appropriate to have RuPaul on a show for kids that's, from 2 to 7 years old.
We covered the story. Australia is building alternative quarantine hubs with relocatable cabins, they call it. Sounds like a camp, right? And so the idea is that, the hotels weren't working, so we're going to build a hub for people to quarantine in, and we're going to have color-coded communities so that we know what area they're in. And we had people on Super Chat saying, oh, come on, Tim. We tried quarantining people in hotels, and it wasn't working, so we're just making something more efficient. And I'm like, yeah, that's called incrementalization.
Right.
It's where they're like, you are now defending the camp because it's within your reasonable boundaries. And the funny thing is, I've long explained the function of moral manipulation through what's called it's resetting a person's boundaries, right? Mm-hmm. So the way I describe it is, imagine there's a scale of negative 100 to positive 100, and then you're at 0. Negative 100 means you absolutely despise a person to the point where you would physically harm them, and positive 100 means marriage in a family. Mm-hmm. You're at 0. A person's reasonable boundaries only go from negative 10 to positive 10. You can only, so what that means is you can't walk up to a random person and say, go hit that guy. They're going to be like, what? No, I don't know who that is. Right. Or go kiss that person, right? They're going to be like, no, that's insane. But you can say slightly in one direction or the other, like, hey, that person called you a mean name, or hey, that person made a nice compliment, and you move them within that boundary. After a certain amount of time in that space, their boundaries reset.
Oh yeah.
So this is how they incrementalize you, right? Mm-hmm. If 3 years ago they announced we're going to be building a major quarantine camp with relocatable cabins to house high-risk populations, people would be like, what?
Right.
But you start with the hotels, and then you go, oh no, the hotels, it's such a disaster. And then people go, well, just build a place then. You're right, we'll build a place. It was your idea.
Right.
That makes more sense.
Yeah. And it depends on who's building it. Mm-hmm. If Trump was building the hotels, it'd be a very, very different reaction than if Biden builds them. So I think what you described is sort of the Overton window put into practice for people.
Right.
And I think a lot of us have been moved in one direction or the other, and you can see it's almost like for some people they have a desire to be controlled by the government, right? It's like they're looking well. And I found this particularly after people started getting vaccinated, where I would hear people say, I'm fully vaccinated, but I'm double masking while I'm riding my bicycle and nobody's around.
In the woods.
Mm-hmm. I was like, well, why would you do that? Well, some health professional said I should. I was like, don't you think you have the ability to make your own rational decisions? And it's unfortunate because I think, again, all of these things are linked because a lot of us have not learned to think critically, to challenge authority, in whatever respectful way, whatever that looks like. And I think you're starting to see the byproduct of that, in our country.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.